Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. You already know who it is and who it ain't. It ain't your boy and it is your man, the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media. Signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the mother cuss word share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and say it. All right. Minister Nap, Stupid Sly, mostly you two. You're not like Loadcast or like Selector J. See, Loadcast, he quit going in on us. And he just, whenever anybody else went back in on us, he didn't join them. So I don't have to go in on him. I don't have to call him out. Selector J did say that if you are failing with women in your home region, you're going to fail with them elsewhere. But he admitted, he's talking about his country. Trinidad and Tobago. And maybe that's true for Trinidad and Tobago. I don't really know. I know that they have a lot of ratchet issue problems. I just don't know the exact extent because I don't live there. But he admitted he's talking about Trinidad and Tobago. He does not know how true that would hold up for the U.S. because it's not where he lived. He admitted this, so I don't have to go in on him either. And I'd recommend that IBMOR and SYSBM not dig into him because he has said, I'm talking about TNT, not the States. So leave him be. But Minister Knapp, Stupid Sly, and Livabitty that was on Stupid Sly's channel. You three slanderers. You've made one mistake I mentioned before, and it's just as stupid a mistake to make today as it was the first time I mentioned it. You made a mistake of thinking you're going to convince thinking people, rational people, that black men in the West with first world prisons would give up freedom in the West to go to the third world and risk getting thrown into third world prisons with third world death penalties at third world standards for these crimes that are really, really sick. Understand, black folk in the West don't have to even travel abroad to see freaks that are into some really degenerate and unspeakable things. They ain't got to travel just to find another person into that. You can go into the hood. We can see the effects of it right now. A lot of boys and girls in the hood been pinned down and been molested. Penetrated or made to penetrate while they were still kids. Many have been. Now listen, these predators oftentimes got smooth the F word away with it. So in these environments where they can do this with impunity, a victim that grows up to become a predator, him or herself, because every victim doesn't grow up to become one, but most predators started off as victims. So a victim that grows up to become a predator and continue the cycle is not really going to even think they can go into white folk areas or other countries and get away with it. They're going to think, dang it, I can get away with it here more easily. And if I don't, I go to a first world prison with protective custody for chomos and probably come out. And that's if the family even wants to tell everybody what happened, because they probably won't. So you see, you got a dysfunctional community in which Big Mama might actually tell everybody else, don't tell the cops on my son for what he did to my great niece. You think they're going to give this up to buy plane tickets that are expensive, to go to Laos or Cambodia or Thailand because what they think they're going to get away with it? They're not. We do not make up the majority of tourists in these areas, sex tourists or otherwise. We are in numbers out there, but we don't make up the majority. So at the nutshell, if a white dude's going to do some sick stuff like that, there's some anonymity. You black, you're probably the only black person around for miles. You see? The real truth, and I wish you niggas would just go ahead and admit this, you understand that the real sickest fantasy in which Passport Brothers or SYSBM or IBMOR, the last two of which do include me, really want to indulge is a functional sexual relationship. In my case, a functional sexual marital relationship. That's a sick fantasy by your standards, because you simply believe that we're so inferior that we deserve nothing of that sort because she says so, and she says so, and she says so. Which leads me to the second stupidest mistake you niggas ever made. All three of you, and any who follow you. Second dumb mistake y'all made is thinking you can convince men for whom the environment has become toxic and discriminatory that they shouldn't leave, that every environment's going to be the same way. But even if they're not, it's really because they're dysfunctional, and therefore they won't discriminate against you because you're also subpar. Come out and say it. You don't believe that human beings are equal. Just go ahead and say it. You believe that a person with a lot of money is inherently better than a poor person. Now, they may be in a better situation. It may be even easier for me to get along with, even me, but just inherently better because of the money they have? No. So, you don't apply that logic to men, don't turn around and apply it to women. Look, if I run the water into my tub, come back later, turn it off, but my tub is full of dirty water already. And I turn around and try it again, and turn around and try it again. And I cannot get my faucet to kick out clean water for me to sit in and bathe in. And then I happen to visit you, and your faucets are kicking out clean water. Are you going to blame me? Now, let's say that there is actually something wrong with me. Let's say, well, I go to visit you, but by this time I'm funky because my own faucets aren't kicking out clean water. So I can come to you either chemically polluted, smelling like the chemicals that pollute the water, or I can come to you smelling like human funk. Armpits. Those are my options. I happen to pass you by or come see you, and your faucets are kicking out clean water. Are you going to blame me? You absolutely will. You're going to sit up and say, no, the water's coming out because you smell like armpits, man. That water ain't coming out dirty. It's just dirty when you show up because you a dirty dude. Oh, really? Or if I smell like chemical pollutants, you're still going to say the same thing. You're going to blame the person who simply can't get the faucets to run clean water. Now, there's one thing for which you absolutely will blame the person, even reasonably so, if they stay in that house, and that is staying in that house. See, you three are the type to blame the person for what's beyond their control. But since it's within their control to stay in that house, you will still blame them, rightfully so. You'd be right to blame them if they have a way to leave the house and then they still stay there. You're going to blame them. And nobody would look at you and say you're crazy. But what about before that point? Right off the bat, you're the three that will start off blaming the person because somebody's piping in dirty water to the house. The women, in a case like this, the women are the water. In the environment that you represent, that same broad that'll duck your sick for free, for whatever reason, will turn around and do some really disrespectful things to most men. And you're saying to most normal men, it's you. Here's the thing. Whatever actually is wrong with me doesn't matter in the West. How do I know? I grew up there. And when I turned shortly before I turned 25, I was actually told what it was. Your phenotype means that nothing else that is wrong with you even comes into the picture. Sure, if you have bad game, if you spit bad game, that works against you. But if you have good game, that doesn't work for you because you still have the same phenotype. You understand? It's like that for a lot of men. Most men in the West, it doesn't matter what good works in their favor. It makes no difference. Whatever good they got going for themselves is inconsequential because they're in an environment that is very, very disfavorable to them. So let's say you're 14. Whatever's wrong with you ain't going to be wrong with you by the time you turn 22 because you got 8 years to learn if you get to learn. But what happens when something beyond your control in that environment is the reason for which you get eliminated? You don't get to learn. The bad things don't really matter. They can count against you if you're discovered, but how often are they even discovered to even be the case? Rarely. Same for the good things about you. They don't count for you. But then you leave, you go somewhere else, and all of a sudden, you have the same chance most others do. Not because every woman's a slut per se, but simply because you may be maybe you're not in the 15% that all the women want, or sometimes 7%. Okay, fine. But one woman whose type you're not is not going to interfere between you and another woman whose type you are. So if she ain't digging you, but her friend thinks you're dishy, she's not going to stop her friend. This is really one of the major differences being outside the West. That's really the major one. See, none of us ever says we get off the plane and all of them just fall over us before we even get the stamp on the passport. We never said that. What we have said is that the one that is digging you and feeling you, well, she doesn't get negative peer pressure from her friends because they weren't. That's what we're saying. And that's the major difference. In the state, if she's feeling you, but her friends aren't, too furthermucking bad. You'll never know she even noticed you because she's already looked at you and she's looking at you she saw you, looked at you through her friend's eyes and said, I can't show him off to them. Never mind, kept on going. And that's the thing you all don't want to admit about the environment in which you live because you simply are not one of the 93 to 85% of dudes that have to go through this. You're the ones that they look at and say for whatever reason they can show you off and they're willing to do it. But even then, let's look at what the hell you've had to settle for. Oh, I'm including you too, Locario and Steve the Dean. Let's look what you guys have had to settle for. Never leaving your particular areas for that, for one. Let's see here. Other men's kids. Open marriages. Y'all got to settle for these things. You act like we're settling for toothless third world whores that are trying to find a visa to go to the States. You act like we have to settle. We're out here settling for stuff like that. And look at what you're settling for. Now, some of y'all say things like, well, I had this dude that said, man, no single moms, I'm not doing that. Then he went over to Brazil and now he's simping for a single mom. Y'all might say that. You know what? You got to stop and ask, well, wait a minute. What is it about her? Instead of looking at him, look at her, because suppose she's spoiling him. You're going to say, well, yeah, she's spoiling him because she got kids. They're not doing that in the States. They're not spoiling you because of that. No, to spoil an average man in the States, they got to bring a bunch of other men's kids and bellies. You see what I'm getting? You see where I'm going? She might have been nice to look at and a widow and spoiled him. I know because that's what I found in North Africa. Now, granted, I was a father at that time by myself. So I wasn't a childless man walking into being a stepdad. But the point I'm making is that she was a widow. I know she didn't kill her husband. She didn't run him off. And she spoiled me. She certainly did. And she made sure that everyone had their particular place. I was good to her kids. They were generally good to me. But when the youngest one acted a furthermucking fool, She did not say, leave him alone, let him go. She didn't say that. That youngest one acted a further mucking fool. I would say to her, does he have any injuries or pressure points? I'm about to fix his behavior. And I'm not going to oppress him. I'm just going to fix his behavior. And she understood. She actually would help with the discipline. I mean, because she was the mom anyway. Point I'm making is, even in those situations with the widow that had someone else's kids, for one, I was the divorcee with my own kids. But number two, see, in that situation, I was still being spoiled. In the States, that was never the case. Never. It didn't exist. Kids are not. Kids or not. I could honestly say that had I met her before she ever met her first husband, it would have been me. I could honestly say that. Regarding the one in North Africa. In the States, you know what? When I think back, I look back at the States, and I could look at any one of my exes and I could say, if they had this going for them and they didn't have this working against them, and it could be just one more by a factor of one, just one less thing working against them, one more thing working for them, it would not have been me. Because that's how they're socialized in the West. And you're telling black men that if they get their passports and go to, i.e., a different house where at least the water's clean, at least they have an equal shot at their faucets running clean water as anyone else. That it's because they're sick perverts that want to do unspeakable things where they will get caught. Man, look, I would rather spend a decade in a Norwegian prison for something I never did than to spend 5 years in a Filipino prison if I'm guilty of a crime. You think that because a black man has a passport and he either whoremongers, looks for a girlfriend, or looks for a wife, whichever one, that he wants to go out there and ruin the lives and the minds and mental health of children and highly risk going to a third world prison and being killed either by the state or by another inmate that knows your crimes, from whom you were not protected, because they don't have to do that. You stupid father muckers. All of you I just named. I don't even hate all of y'all. But your intellects are trash. Now, you stupid sly. You I do have a hatred for. You openly worship the devil. I didn't hear you say it, but I got several people that have witnessed you saying this on your video. You openly worship the devil. I mean, hell, I did see one of your opening credits, what was it, Luciferian Studios or Luciferian Pictures, something like that. I did see that, so I believe it. God help you if you ever do get a chance to move to Morocco. I'll be the first one to send your photo and your videos and a link of your YouTube channel to the Moroccan embassy here where I am. And let them know, because Satanism is not allowed over there. You could be Jewish or Christian. You don't necessarily have to be Muslim, but Satanism is not allowed. They won't kill you, but they will pick you up. And if you try to throw down on them cops, then they will kill you. And I've seen their cops. They ain't no joke. They will up you fuck. You can't scare them just because you black. Next. You were the one that mainly came with the slander. See, others might say, well, you just bait over there, so you're going to be beta wherever you go. They might say that, but you're in a special category because you and Liver Bitty, you two are sitting up there trying to imply and get people to believe that black men who get sick and tired of the wicked witches of the West are just not only beta, but actually a bunch of perverts. Just mad because the West won't accept it. Bro, those countries don't accept it. Stupid behinds. Starting a slander. Thank God you didn't say anybody's. Well, that's right. You not only you believe in God, you just hate him because you worship his enemy. But you didn't name names, and that's what didn't open you up to a lawsuit. By the way, I'm gonna tell everybody in the audience right now. If Stupid Sly decides to say anything about me right off the bat, it's gonna be false. He's gonna have to make it up because he doesn't know. If he tries to dox me, it's already been set up. Anyone trying to dox me will probably get a hold of somebody else's information, and that person then will go ahead and sue. I wish Soraya Stewart would go and sue Shira 7. I wish she would. But that would be an international lawsuit. And that's a different story. But I wish she would do it. So I'm going to let y'all know right now. I'm not doxing Stupid Sly. I don't know his real name. I'm not going to ask. He probably would say it anyway. But I'm not doing that. What I am saying, though, is that he's in a special category by himself because he started the slander on top of sitting up bragging about worshiping the devil. If he does that, he already does not believe he has to tell the truth. He believes that it is okay to lie, not even to reconcile two people or to prevent a war or because of any emergency situation. He believes it is okay to lie just because he wants something. And what does he possibly want with trying to stop Passport Brothers and SYSBM and IBMOR from leaving? What could he possibly want? It's very simple. When you worship the devil, you do certain rituals and you start to hear something respond to you. Like you can audibly hear something begin to communicate back with you. Whether he was explained why he was given these instructions or not, at some point he heard a particular set of instructions given. Go after them. Make it so that they cannot leave. Because see, by getting men stuck in these environments and unable to leave, what it does is it disincentivizes the women to change. It further ruins the family structure. And that's not only, ruining the family structure is not just a corporate agenda. It's not just a national agenda. It's not any of these things. It is also a satanic agenda. And he's a Satan worshiper. That's what it is. He may not have been told what the grand plan is, but he was given instructions and he's carrying them out. He's doing it. That's why I brought up the Satanism. It's one of the reasons I brought it up. It doesn't just so happen that he's a Satanist and he did it. He did this because of his Satanism. And if he's never actually heard anybody give instructions to him while he's awake and performing a ritual, then he heard it while he was asleep. He heard the instructions, but they are connected. If he doesn't know that they're connected, they are still connected. That's why he's in a special class. And Livabitty, oh God, Lord have mercy. Here she is in UAE, according to her. And it is safe. She was right about that. But she said she likes to party hardy too. Well, I happen to know something about black expat females who like to party hardy. They're women, so they got to get their rocks off. I don't blame them for having a libido. What I blame them for is the conditions under which they get these rocks off later on and satisfy these libidos. They don't like it when they see black men with non-black women. They may not trip. They may say it's him, long as he don't diss black women, but they don't necessarily like it. I myself don't like it when I see black women with specifically white men. I openly admit it, but that has more to do with oppression than it does with jealousy. However, she doesn't like to see it. I know because I worked with someone similar to her. Not identical at all. Different personalities, but similar adaptations to being black expat females working abroad. And here's what it was. We all really should be with black women, talking to black men. You say to them, well, y'all really should be with a black man. Well, we don't have choices like that. They will openly tell you. Because I know, because I was openly told by Sandra. I told y'all about that. Sandra openly said to me, y'all should be with black women, but we can step out because we're the ones that don't really have the options like that. And Sandra wound up getting busy with a man who had black blood, but she didn't know he had it. She told me he wasn't black. She didn't tell me they got busy, but she told me he wasn't black. I was like, oh, so that means she didn't know he was black. But then someone else was able to confirm, no, they got busy. Okay. So she got busy with a man that she didn't know was black, but I'm supposed to limit myself to only us, even though I knew that sisters were not interested in being seen out in public with a guy of my phenotype, at least not ADO sisters. Now, to her credit, Sandra didn't trip when she found out about my wife and I being married, because my wife ain't ADOS. She's a U.S. citizen, but she ain't ADOS. She did not trip, and that's a good thing, to her credit. But Liver Bitty does not feel any qualms about confusing some culturally non-black but genetically black travelers who might be doing this sick stuff with passport bros, SYSBM and IBMOR, who are not only genetically black but also culturally black. We're not the ones who grew up in white environments thinking we were going to get away with the same stuff that the white kids were going to get away with. I knew someone like that. He grew up in my neighborhood, childhood friend of mine, but he'd always been in these white environments all through elementary. From K to 12, he was at this largely white school with a few non-whites in it. He was just really adapted, very well adapted to white environments. And he thought, well, there's just not really racism anymore like what our parents went through. That's not true. I kid you not. That's how he believed for a long time. Guess what wound up being the case? At some point, Burger King around the corner from us got robbed. He happened to be there. He and the other black conscious teenager in our city that I told you there were only two of us when we were growing up. He was with that friend of ours. They were at the Burger King eating when it got held up. Witnesses saw my friends sitting down eating with everybody else while the cashiers got held up and the register was ripped up or the money was taken, whatever the case, and the robbers fled. They had nothing to do with the robbers, but because they were the only black folks that were there, the cops were there within a minute. And my friends got detained. Now, my pro-black conscious friend, he expected this. He was somewhat prepared. My culturally, racially neutered friend, somewhat, he was a bit unprepared for this. But he was also a bit prepared because he had begun to be a little bit more conscious. He was just beginning to open his eyes up, and this happened, and this was it for him. This was his black pill. This was his Negro wake-up call. Even he was not allowed to reach adulthood, thinking that he was going to get away with the same things as white folks, because he and my friend were the only two Negroes there, and they were the only two that got detained. He would never go to these countries to do some sick stuff, thinking he's going to get away with it. So that what this means, now I don't think he knows about SYSBM or IBMO. I don't think he knows about none of this. But let me tell you all straight away, I do not think for a second that most black folk in America, if they don't know about these acronyms I mentioned, and they grew up with white folks, I don't think they reach traveling age with this idea, this illusion that they're going to get away with the same stuff, even abroad. And one of the reasons I don't think so is because, you see, when you go into some of these places, don't think white folk get away with everything. Don't believe that either. There are plenty, in these third world prisons, there are plenty of white Westerners sitting there like everybody else, rotting away and even having it worse because they can't speak the language when they first get in. Plenty of them. They don't get away with it right off the bat just because they're white and Western. Ain't no guarantee. They get picked up, they get arrested, they get tried. The embassies cannot, spring them or anything like that. That being said, I think y'all get the picture. Thank you all for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout. Assalamu alaikum. And black, heterosexual, non-select male power, just because niggas like stupid, sly, and liver bitty don't like it. And Lucario and Steve the Dean don't like it. And who else did I forget? Oh, and Minister Knapp, just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.